In the brutal, suffocating heat of the Pacific War, one man's skill and one weapon's reliability would be pushed to their absolute limit. This is the story of a weapon dismissed as a mere tool, and the soldier who wielded it with unimaginable precision. It is a tale of a 4-day ordeal, a nerve-shredding game of cat and mouse played out in a deadly arena of jungle and rock. How could one rifle and one soldier stop 11 enemy snipers? This is not a legend. This is a forgotten chapter of World War II, a testament to cold courage and lethal efficiency. Our story takes us to the island of Bougainville, November 1943. The sprawling Japanese-held island was a key link in their defensive perimeter, and the American 3rd Marine Division was tasked with securing a beachhead at Cape Torokina. The fighting was brutal, a grinding battle against a tenacious, invisible enemy in some of the most unforgiving terrain on Earth. The jungle was a close-quarters nightmare, a tangled green hell where visibility was often measured in feet, not yards. It was here we find our soldier, Sergeant Herbert J. Banks of the 3rd Marine Division. He was not a man who sought glory, but a Marine who understood his duty. And his tool was the Springfield M1903A4 sniper rifle. To the untrained eye, it was simply a modified version of the standard issue M1903 Springfield. But this specific model, the A4, was a product of necessity. With the military scrambling for specialized sniper rifles, the A4 was essentially a standard rifle pulled from the line, fitted with a commercial Weaver M73B1 telescopic sight, and shipped out. Some derisively called it a mail-order rifle, a makeshift solution. But in the hands of a marksman like Banks, it was an instrument of deadly purpose.
The strategic situation was dire. The Japanese defenders, masters of camouflage and delaying tactics, had seeded the jungle with snipers. These hidden killers were not just aiming to kill, they were aiming to paralyze. They stalled advances, pinned down entire companies, and instilled a pervasive, chilling fear into every man who set foot in the dense undergrowth. The Marines' advance was grinding to a bloody halt. The ordeal began on a morning like any other, the air already thick with humidity and the ever-present stench of decay and cordite. Banks' unit was pushing forward along a narrow jungle trail, the Marines tense, their eyes scanning the impenetrable wall of green. The first shot came without warning, a sharp crack that ripped through the jungle hum. A Marine corporal, a point man just 10 yards ahead, crumpled to the ground. There was no visible enemy, no muzzle flash to pinpoint, just the deadly, silent aftermath. Sergeant Banks didn't panic. He moved with a methodical, cold focus. He found a position of relative cover, a small depression behind a fallen log. He scanned the canopy, the dense foliage, the shadows. The Weaver scope on his M1903A4 became his only window into the hidden world of his adversary. For 20 minutes, he saw nothing. Then, a flicker of movement, a subtle shift in the pattern of leaves high in a banyan tree 80 yards away, a glint of sunlight on metal. It was enough. Banks took a slow, steady breath, let half of it out, and squeezed the trigger. The report of his Springfield was decisive. A body tumbled from the canopy, hitting the ground with a sickening thud. The immediate threat was neutralized, but the relief was short-lived.
The next day, the sniping intensified. It was no longer a lone gunman. Now it was a coordinated effort. As Banks' platoon tried to secure a rocky outcrop overlooking a vital trail, the fire came from multiple directions. One sniper would fire from the east, drawing the Marines' attention. Then another would fire from the west. They were being hunted. By 1400 hours, 2 more Marines were wounded. Their advance completely stalled. The enemy snipers, hidden in expertly constructed spider holes and dense canopy hides, had the entire area zeroed in. Every movement drew fire. Fear, cold and palpable, gripped the men. They were pinned down, exposed, in a killing zone.
Banks understood the grim calculus. He was the only designated sniper in the immediate area. The responsibility fell squarely on his shoulders.
On the second day, he identified and eliminated 2 more snipers. One was concealed in a pile of volcanic rock, his position so perfect he was virtually invisible until he fired. Banks waited for what seemed like an eternity until the man exposed a sliver of his head to reload. The .30-06 round found its mark. The third was in another tree, this one 120 yards out. Banks's shot was true. But with each kill, the enemy seemed to adapt, becoming more cautious, more cunning. The ordeal was becoming a battle of wits, a psychological duel as much as a physical one. By the third day, the situation reached its crisis point. The Japanese snipers had clearly identified Banks as the primary threat. They began to target him specifically. A round snapped past his ear, so close he felt the wind of its passage. Chips of rock stung his face from a near miss that impacted the ground beside his position. He was no longer the hunter. He had become the hunted. The stress was immense, a constant, grinding pressure that frayed nerves and tested the will. Every shadow seemed to hold a rifle barrel. Every rustle of leaves sounded like the cocking.
The jungle itself became an enemy. The relentless heat sapped his strength. Leeches attached themselves to his skin. Thirst was a constant torment.
His world shrank to the view through his scope, the feel of the rifle stock against his cheek, and the overwhelming need to remain perfectly still for hours on end. His platoon was completely immobilized, relying entirely on his skill for their survival and any hope of continuing the mission. The weight of those lives was a heavier burden than any pack. On the morning of the 4th day, the impossible happened. As Banks shifted position to get a better angle on a suspected hide, a Japanese sniper round struck his rifle. The bullet slammed into the Weaver scope itself, shattering the optics and sending shards of glass and metal into the air. The force of the impact wrenched the rifle from his hands and tore the scope mount from the receiver. For a terrifying moment, Banks was blinded, his primary tool destroyed. He was now defenseless against the hidden marksman, his one advantage gone. The situation seemed utterly hopeless. The mocking words about his mail-order rifle must have echoed in his mind. It had failed at the most critical moment. Or had it? But Herbert Banks was a Marine, and a Marine adapts. As the shock subsided, a cold, determined clarity took over. The rifle itself was still functional. The scope was destroyed, but the iron sights on the M1903A4, while not designed for primary use in this configuration, were still intact. He would have to get closer, much closer. This was the heroic decision, the turning point born of sheer desperation and unwavering resolve. He would abandon his long-range advantage and enter the close-quarters killing ground. He informed his lieutenant of his plan. Under the covering fire of 2 Browning automatic rifles, Banks began to crawl. He moved inch by agonizing inch, through mud, across sharp volcanic rock, and through thick tangles of kunai grass. The journey of 100 yards took him over an hour. The deafening roar of the bars provided a sonic blanket, masking any small sounds he might make. His uniform was torn, his skin scraped and bleeding, but his focus was absolute. He finally reached a small cluster of rocks that gave him a vantage point of two suspected sniper positions. Without the scope, the world was larger, less defined. He had to rely on the fundamentals taught a lifetime ago in training: front sight, rear sight, target. He took a deep, settling breath, the smell of damp earth and gunpowder filling his nostrils. He saw movement in a thicket. A Japanese sniper, confident that the American marksman had been neutralized, was shifting his aim towards the main Marine position. He presented a fleeting, partial target. Banks aligned his iron sights, the process feeling strangely primitive, yet intensely personal. He squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out. The sniper slumped. The remaining enemy sniper, now aware of the new threat, fired wildly in Banks' direction. A bullet sparked off the rock just inches from his head. Banks didn't flinch. He remained still, waiting. He knew the enemy had revealed his approximate position.
He scanned the foliage, his eyes straining for any anomaly. Then he saw it, the faintest outline of a helmet against a dark tree trunk. It was a long shot for iron sights, nearly 200 yards.
He adjusted his aim, accounting for the drop, holding high. He fired. The helmet jerked back and did not move again. In the span of 10 minutes, with a damaged rifle and iron sights, Herbert J. Banks had turned certain defeat into an unbelievable victory. When the 4-day ordeal was finally over, the area fell silent. The deadly chorus of sniper fire had ceased. A cautious patrol confirmed what Banks already knew. 11 Japanese snipers lay dead in their hides, their positions neutralized by one man and one rifle. The path was clear. The platoon, which had been pinned down for days, could finally advance. The cost had been high in nerves and morale, but Banks' actions had undoubtedly saved dozens of Marine lives. For his incredible display of marksmanship, coolness under fire, and sheer determination, Sergeant Herbert J. Banks was officially recognized for his actions. While the specific paperwork for this engagement has been lost to time, his service with the 3rd Marine Division on Bougainville is a matter of record, and his story was documented in contemporary accounts and after-action reports. His M1903A4 rifle, with its shattered scope, was more than a weapon. It became a symbol of resilience. The so-called mail-order rifle, a product of American industrial improvisation, had proven its worth in the most extreme conditions imaginable, but only because of the indomitable spirit of the man who wielded it. The legacy of this 4-day duel is a powerful lesson in the art of military sniping, that technology is only as effective as the training, courage, and adaptability of the soldier behind the sights.